Are we unmuted?
Yep.
I do too. Do we have a quorum?
Yeah, I think so.
Barely.
Well, I guess if you count waiting vote or the.
We don't have a quorum, we're gonna have lunch.
Mr. Davis, I think if we can do the roll call, we believe that we do have a quorum with the weighted voting.
I was thinking the same thing. Ms. Firestone, we do the roll call.
Yes, sir. Would you like to call the meeting to order?
Well, the next time it was gonna be executive director search.
Call the meeting to order, don't we have to vote on whether he, I guess he can give himself.
I've got well, so that's gonna be the difficult part because I've got a remote participation. Mr. Attorney.
Who's the vice?
Yeah,
He is the vice chair.
Vice Chair.
I move no.
I think he.
Yeah, I second. So
Yeah.
members of, before we descend further into chaos, I'll suggest that Mr. Davis is participating remotely, right? So we can call he could call the meeting to order, but he will need to be approved and confirm his participation from a remote location pursuant to item 1A in your agenda.
Now, the question is, what is that worth?
I will defer
allowed
to
to
the
meet
elected
our
officials to define that.
Do we have
but-
to do roll call before we do that?
Yes, sir.
So that we have a quorum? and then do that?
If Mr. Davis is ready, the meeting can be called to order, and then we can
Can we
proceed.
talk to each other?
Yes, sir. And
Okay, I
we
just
can
didn't- are we
proceed
in
with the
charge
Pledge
of
of
this?
Allegiance.
Okay, so the time is 11:11, and I will call the meeting to order. Ms. Firestone, will you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Town of Ashland, Dr. McGraw, Ms. Abbott.
Here.
Mr. Chambers. Thank you. 1 second.
Is she remote too? Is she remote too? I'm sorry.
Mr. Chambers,
Yes, Mrs. Abbott. Ms. Abbott is virtual.
Charles City County, Mr. Atkins, Mr. Coda, Chesterfield County, Mr. Winslow,
Present.
Mr. Holland, Mr. Carroll, Mr. Miller, Mr. Engel,
Here.
Ms. Fry,
Here.
Mr. Davy.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Vaughters, Mr. Spoonhour. Hanover County, Vice Chair Davis.
He said here, we didn't.
Okay. Mr. Peterson, Ms. Pritchard, Mr. Whitaker, Mr. Waddell. Henrico County, Reverend Nelson, Ms. O'Bannon,
Here.
Mr. Thornton,
Here.
Ms. Thornton, Mr. Baca. New Kent County, Ms. Page, Mr. Lockwood, Ms. Pearson. Here. Thank you. Powhatan County, Mr. Byerly, Mr. McClung, Mr. Hall.
Here.
City of Richmond, Dr. Newbill, Mr. Addison,
Here.
Ms. Lambert, Ms. Lynch, Ms. Robertson, Mr. Poole, Mr. Giovia. I am showing 19 votes present. We got 34.
19 out of 34.
Yes, so we,
We do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Very well. The next item on the agenda is Sean. Well, I think we got Mr. Abbott here for Dr. McGraw. Is that correct?
Yes, Kathy Abbott is online and requesting virtual
apologies.
participation
I
as
meant
well
Mrs. Abbott.
as
Yes.
the chair.
Got it. So we've got a remote participation request from Sean Davis for personal reasons. I think is one of the items. The chair will approve the request to go to the floor for a vote. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Gregory, do we need Mrs. Abbott's remote participation as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Abbott, will you state that you are requesting remote participation and for what reason?
Sure, I am requesting remote participation because I woke up this morning with the creepy crud and I don't think you want to see me.
We'll consider that a personal reason.
Translated.
The chair will approve that for a vote. I make the motion, Ms. Abbott be allowed to participate remotely. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's see. Next item on the agenda, bear with me, ladies and gentlemen.
How about the Pledge of Allegiance?
Mr. Davis, would you like me to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And got a technical thing here I'm looking at. Miss Schickle, the agenda you sent me is not the only thing that's coming up here is an agenda from Henrico County.
Oh, apologies.
Give me 10 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Should be.
Just file attachment, Halloween.
it should be.
It's a PDF files.
It's the agenda packet. Well, either one, but the packet is everything.
I'd probably pull it from Janice. I don't know why this isn't. You
My
know what?
apologies.
I've got it.
It's
No,
downloading.
I've got it. That's why we were off comments. All right.
Do you have the whole packet? Would you like for me to email it as an
Ma'am,
attachment?
I've got it. No, ma'am. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, so the next item on the agenda are public comments. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the commission on any matter within the commission's authority? If so, please come forward, state your name, the organization that you represent. 5 minutes. Do we see anyone?
No.
Very well. We will now close public comment time. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Is there a request for approval?
Move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the September 14th, 2023 meeting minutes. Have all commission members had an opportunity to review the minutes? Any requests for deletions, additions, or corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Winslow, is there a second? I heard a second. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Thank you.
We have an abstention.
Yeah, that's all.
Firestone, please record the abstention.
Thank you, Habit.
Very well. Next item on the agenda, item number 4, standing committee reports, the chair report. So we have, before we get to item 2, we're going to do item A, Roman numeral 1, AI. So most of y'all have received the invitation. Well, everybody's received the invitation. And we'd like some help with this. Looks like it's going well. We wanted to do kind of a welcome, not welcome aboard, but kind of welcome to the organization, welcome to the region, but not make it something that's long or lofty. And so we have decided to do an elected officials reception. There was some talk about this for quite some time, and Ms. Schickel came up with a great idea and a great location, and we put all these types of things together. The only time that really came together, we didn't want to do it after the new year. We wanted to do it as close to the election as possible. So we've got a great facility. We've got kind of a great lineup. It is not going to be a lot of speeches. It is literally going to be a reception, some fun fellowship, and folks coming in to meet the new folks, right? The folks who got elected on the 7th. As well as some of our alumni, right? So current commission members and alumni have been invited. So it should be a lot of fun. Martha, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of talk a little bit about the details.
Thank you. So we do have a QR code in case you'd like to go ahead and register now. But we will be sending another follow-up email with the registration information to your inboxes on November 8th. That invitation will also add into the invitation list those who were successful in their November 7th competition. So all of you who serve on the commission today are invited and encouraged, and we would love for you to attend. So please do put this in your calendar if you're available to attend and register to come. I know we have about 35 registrants already, and we are hopeful that this will be a successful welcome to those who are newly elected to the region after November 7th. The event is 5:30 to 7:30, as Chairman Davis said. It is intended for you as elected officials from around the region and leaders, planning commission members, citizen appointees to be able to meet and connect with the other folks from across the region. We know that time that you get to spend together is valuable, and we wanted to be able to set the tone for those folks joining our regional family. The event will be located at the new Henrico County Sports Arena. We're in the Fairfield room right now. If numbers exceed the Fairfield occupancy, then we have a kind of a Plan B option. But we do look forward to hosting you. All of your local government administrators have been invited, and they have submitted names of their key staff and leadership who will also attend. So I know that we've got some of the staff leadership invited as well. And in addition to that, we did extend the invitation to everyone that serves on the TPO policy board and on the CVTA, as well as our state legislators. So again, look forward to seeing everybody to kick off that holiday season on November 20th at 5:30 for the newly elected officials welcome reception.
Thank you, Martha. Let me see. Okay, so I think we want to go in. Martha, will you handle the next item on the agenda? That's obviously for you. Would you give the intro to that, please?
Yes, I will. Included in your packet on page 7, you'll see a letter that was submitted at the end of September to the governor's office requesting additional funds be appropriated through the budget process to planning district commissions across the state. We're requesting that the additional funds in the amount of $150,000 be provided to planning district commissions, which would not quite get us back to the 1990s level of funding from the General Assembly, but would get us closer to that. We felt like on advice from our friends at DecideSmart, who have been strategic counsel to the VAPDC for a number of years, that this was the right year to submit the request. And our executive director of the state association, David Blunt, who you've met before and has done briefings for us, is prepared to seek patronage in the General Assembly should the governor not include it in the budget that's submitted to the General Assembly after the first of the year. So I guess it's actually released in December. So we're anxious to see the results of our request and have been requesting localities consider submitting letters of support for the effort. So if any of your jurisdictions would be interested in submitting a letter of support, we have circulated a draft template to each of your county administrators and city and town managers. And I believe one of our jurisdictions has already confirmed that a letter has gone in. That letter can be submitted directly to the governor's office, to me, or to David Blunt at VAPDC, if you're so inclined. And we are, I would also mention, just coordinating with the VACO and the VML legislative advocates. VACO for a long time has had a standing kind of language around continued financial support for planning district commissions. I don't expect that they're going to change that language, but we have enjoyed a really nice relationship with those state associations of municipalities. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. And I should say, from an order of magnitude, we get about $127,000 from the General Assembly's appropriation currently. So this request would more than double that. And our intended use of the funds would be to support the obligations that we have under the Virginia Code. As you know, we have a number of responsibilities, and $127,000 frankly doesn't go very far in maintaining the state data center affiliate, preparing and submitting updates to the regional strategic plan, and supporting the intergovernmental reviews and intergovernmental cooperation requirements that we have. So.
Thank you, Martha. So the idea was if we could index, this wasn't like an extra, this wasn't a gravy request. If we could index to some of the governor's initiatives, some of the General Assembly initiatives, and again, get the funding back to where it was, there's been a lot of support for PDCs in some areas from legislators as of late. The governor's had some favorable comments towards PDCs, I think because they see how some of these planning district commissions are working and benefiting. So the idea was that while it's not a huge amount of money, there is a diff between what the PDC was funded from the state before and what the request was. And so we decided to go ahead and move forward with that. And hopefully we'll see that manifest itself into being approved. So thank you very much, Ms. Schickel. So the next item on the agenda, I'm going to block this, say a few things. Mr. Holland is actually teaching. So I want to go into item 4B. Audit, Finance, and Facilities Committee Report. So I'll block this out. So we have the FY 2023 financial statements and audit report. That is in page 9 if you've had an opportunity to look at that. We're going to talk about some of these things before we take any proposed action. The FY 2024 budget review. So the committee members reviewed this, the updates to the 2024 budget. Again, Mr. Holland, Mr. Peterson are not here. They kind of work closely on that. So there could be some adjustments. There are some anticipated adjustments depending on staffing and some of the funding awards. So we'll get to that in just a second. And then FY 2025 member dues. There's been talk, obviously, amongst commission members. That's why we have it on the agenda of going to 60 cents. We do have a letter from Mr. Vitokas. Everybody knows they have a special assessment in Henrico, so that letter is available for anybody who would like to see that as well. So with that, we have the financial statements and the audit report. If there's no objection, I'm going to ask everybody to go to page 9 and take a look at that. And Ms. Schickel, I'll turn it over to you for the administration of B1.
Thank you.
I am on the audit committee. Are you looking for someone who's on the audit committee?
I am, I'm trying to look between that and here. Is there someone here from the audit committee?
Yes, Pat O'Bannon, I'm
Oh,
on the
Pat, I
audit
see you right there.
committee.
My apologies, I can hear you. Yep, my apologies. Mr. Bannon, would you like to take this and facilitate this now?
No, I think Ms. Schickel can probably start us off.
Okay, yeah.
What I
Well,
wanted
that
to
was-
start, I just wanted to start with, it was an unmodified opinion, meaning they didn't see anything structurally wrong or bad for the financial statements and the independent auditor's report of Dunmore-Campton roads and roads. And it's noted on page 11 in the report. And we went over it in great detail, and I know that it's in there that there was a decrease in the fund balance, but I think Ms. Schickel can tell us that it's back. I mean, it's back in there at this point, but she can talk about the fund balance and what happened there. You know, we allocated some money from the fund balance to pay for moving expenses and equipment, and that's why it was taken from the fund balance. But the plan was to put it back. There were no material problems, weaknesses in the report. We have been going over it on a regular basis with the audit. The audit committee has gone over it on a regular basis, and one of the things that came from that and looking at it, and I'm sure Ms. Schickel will talk about that too, is the change in the allocation to the different jurisdictions for the future. So, Ms. Schickel, do you want to?
Sure, yeah, thank you for that overview. As Mrs. O'Bannon alluded, the Finance Committee did meet on Tuesday of this week to review, and I will also introduce and note that Mark Rhodes from Dunham-Allcamp and Rhodes, our accounting firm, is here and will be able to respond and answer questions. So Mark, I think I'm going to do kind of a high-level overview of the organization of the audit report, and then we can turn it over to you to hit any kind of highlights that you'd like to. Structurally, the audit report is broken into about 4 different sections. Starting on 11, you can see the independent auditor's report. That's the section that Mrs. O'Bannon was referring to that indicates the overview of the process of the auditor and their opinion, which was an unmodified opinion. Just to sort of put it in layperson speak, an unmodified opinion is good. So, starting on page 14, you'll see the management discussion and analysis. This is an opportunity for staff to develop this section of the audit report to be able to identify any kind of material items that have occurred over the course of the year, to be able to provide context to the financial statements and make it frankly a little bit of an easier document to get through. So thanks to Mr. Van Dornick for preparing that. The next section is the actual set of financial statements that were prepared and audited. That starts beginning on page 21. And you'll see there, that's where we really get into the meat of the financials and the summary for the prior year. So we start with the statement of net position. On the next page, statement of activities, the balance sheet. On page 23, I will refer you to about midway down on that page of the financial statement entitled Balance Sheet, Governmental Funds. You'll see total fund balance, that second figure there at $1,174,270. That is the year-end fund balance that we concluded for this year. So in the management discussion analysis, it does reference that and indicates that that's in excess of the $1 million fund balance target that the board set as policy for the year. Moving forward to the next
Can I
page.
just make one comment?
Yes, ma'am.
One thing the audit committee decided to do, and I'll just have to put this out there too, is to do an analysis of what the fund balance should be and the makeup of the fund balance, because we have had questions on that. But Mr. Peterson and I both are not running for re-election, so this Mr. Holland could remain as chairman, and I recommend that. He's a CPA, which is why he's chairman in the first place. And Mr. Holland, I think, will appreciate that. But we were going to do a deep dive into what is fund balance and how it's used. In the past, we have used it with the idea that if an emergency happened and we had to, for instance, say disband, and the state, as you know, changes their minds sometimes on how things are done, And we had to pay off the 10-year, is it 10-year rental agreement for the facility here. And we didn't know what the wording is on the contract, so we wanted to go over the contract and see if we could get out of it. How much would it be, percentage? Can we lease sections of the rooms we are renting here, the area we're the rooms are square footage we're paying for now, that we had that same problem at our other location. So in other words, we do plan to do a dive, the committee should do a dive on that to make sure how much should be in the fund balance. It was used in part to pay for some of the moving expenses we had. So all the jurisdictions weren't required to do a one-time payment to assist us. We used that, and it has, you're gonna talk about that later.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Schiffer will talk about that later, about how it's been restored. But that is what you would do, use the fund balance for, and by doing that and having that account there, it also shows how strong we are financially. So please continue.
Thank you, yeah. The next section, starting on page 27, is a pretty hefty section. It's the notes to the financial statement. These are in part requirements of the formatting of the audit type that we have, but I want to call your attention in particular to note 9 on page 46. This is the second fiscal year that we have included this notation. This is a newer requirement in the financial statements and reporting, and it is specific to reporting in the financial statements the offsetting asset and liability associated with long-term leases. And so it's directly related to Mrs. O'Bannon's comments insofar as wanting to make sure that from a financial outlook perspective, we have the resources to cover our long-term obligations. And so this is an attempt to be able to require organizations who have this audit to have increased transparency and line of sight, if you will, to those obligations. So that is a notation there. As you can imagine, as our lease goes down, the obligation gets less. That's why last year, even though we did include this particular lease liability note, Mr. Van Dornick reminded me, our lease obligation was less than $100,000 because we were at the very near the last quarter essentially of our lease obligation. I think the best look at also the other point that Mrs. O'Bannon was making with regard to the delta in the fund balance is found on page 48. This is a supplemental statement that provides to you a comparison of the initial budget that was approved by the board prior to the start of the fiscal year. Where we landed as a final budget for the year, there were no changes in that because we didn't actually do an amendment to the budget over the course of the year. And then that third column is the actual, where we can actually see what the revenues by category and the expenses were. As you can see from an operating perspective, we finished the year with a net income of $21,100. We had approved a budget anticipating level funding. In other words, revenues were going to match expenses, and we ended up a little bit better off than projected from an operating perspective. The board did also approve a $297,000 transfer from fund balance to cover the expenses associated with the relocation, the construction build out, in excess of our tenant improvements negotiated through the lease, and the purchase of the new equipment and furnishings. And we finished out a little bit ahead of schedule on that as well, with a savings of about $40,000 coming in under budget essentially for that. And so you can see the breakdown of that transfer from fund balance. Actual was $256,000. 193 of that was associated with the actual build out and the costs associated with that, and then 63,000 were the equipment that were approved as part of the relocation. So while we did have a decrease to the fund balance, it was planned, and we spent quite a bit of time on Tuesday also talking about that as, I would say, having a planned transfer from the fund balance is always good, always better than an unplanned one. And it's something that we want to make sure as we look forward to Mrs. O'Bannon's comments that the fund balance is sufficient to be able to meet those future needs, not just from a sort of a worst case scenario, but to be able to finance the work that this agency needs to do without going back to the jurisdictions for a special add-on assessment. The documents that follow, the other part that we talked about in the finance committee were just sort of the changing composition of our staff and the realization that we'll want to kind of just continue to monitor what that does to our pension liabilities. And so it's really just a note for awareness and continued discussion. But the notes of the financial statements continue for several pages. And then concluding on page 54, you'll find the independent auditor's report on internal controls and financial reporting. So again, what Mrs. O'Bannon started the section with in identifying that there were no findings related to our internal control system and the separation of duties. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rhodes, if that's okay, Mr. Chair, just to be able to give comments about the overall process and the dialogue that he had with the Finance Committee on Tuesday.
Yes, ma'am. I just have one comment to make. Thank you, Ms. O'Bannon, for stating that. I hope everybody's clear on what was talked about that. It was an extensive conversation, fund balances, so on and so forth. Very, very comprehensive, led by Ms. O'Bannon, and certainly had a lot of dialogue back and forth between the Finance Committee. I was present at that meeting. So thank you, Ms. O'Bannon and Ms. Schickel, for talking about that. It briefly came up on December 8th of last year when we were at the airport, and then we ended up getting the audit in, got it approved. So if there are any questions about that, I will be happy to go back to the Finance Committee and ask them to prepare for that. But handling the fund balances was a deep dive, and I really commend the Finance Committee for getting all of that discussion out and opened up to come to the resolution of what we see. Second thing is, administratively, I have spoken to Chairman Holland of the Finance Committee, and he has agreed to serve as chair. Again, should it be the pleasure of the commission. Mr. Rhodes, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you. So the only thing that I'll just touch base on is that, yes, all the reports are unmodified, meaning clean opinions. In talking to Department of Transportation as part of our audit, they indicated that they had no issues, findings, that it was well, that they worked well with the staff there at the commission. And I mean, the controls in place, again, we didn't find any findings or issues to talk about. I guess the only thing that I might recommend as a general overview would just be that, you know, you have covered for people's individual positions, that you have a good backup for somebody as people, you know, kind of transition from jobs, just making sure you have procedures in place so that as people move on, that you're ready for that. And that was it. Was there any questions?
Anything for Mr. Rhodes? Thank you, Mark.
I just wanted to, Mr. Davis, if I could just say thank you in front of everyone to Mr. Rhodes and Mr. Van Dornick. Having a completed audit package to the board by the end of October is, well, actually the week before the end of October is a significant feat. And so we just wanted to say thank you. We were working to be able to get this audit completed on time and submitted by the December 1st deadline. And so depending on the board's action today, we will more than meet that deadline, and just very appreciative of the work that went into that process.
For sure. If there are no other questions, Ms. O'Bannon, would you care to take any action to accept the 2023 financial statements and audit report as authorized by staff to submit as necessary to the state and federal agencies?
I was going to read it. I move we accept the fiscal year 2023 financial statements and audit report and authorize staff to submit as necessary to state and federal agencies.
Second.
We have a motion second by Mr. Winslow. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Let the record reflect unanimous vote. Ms. Strickler, do you want to hit the next subtopic?
Yes, sir. It'll be quick because, I was a bit aggressive in thinking that we would be able to have, in addition to the audit, a budget review for the current fiscal year. And so the committee agreed that we would push that to their next meeting in January. So we'll have 2 full quarters to report to the committee, as well as the benefit of hopefully news on some outstanding grant applications that we have. So that will actually be a deferred item to next time they meet.
Could you state that? You broke up one more time. The membership dues.
Apologies. Item 4B2 is an item deferred to the next finance committee meeting. So we have no new information to report today.
Okay, thank you. Item 4B3, 2025 membership dues. Again, we can forward the letter from Mr. Vitokas to folks if they'd like to read that. Ms. Schickle, would you like to address
Yes. We did discuss this in the finance committee. I'll just note, there was a great discussion with finance. We did not have a quorum for that committee meeting, so there was no motion that came out of that, but by consensus, the committee agreed to bring the discussion to this body today, to give guidance to staff in approving member dues at a per capita rate of 60 cents. That's actually not a percent or a per capita increase. It's the combined 55 cents per capita member dues that we've had for some time, and the 5 cents per capita on the RRTPO special assessment. So it's just the combined calculation of that. We've historically approached that assessment as 2 separate calculations because previously the RRTPO boundary was smaller than the overall PDC boundary. When the TPO expanded its boundary to match the PDC footprint 2 years ago, really the 5 cents and the 55 cents aren't distinguishable anymore. It's the same population basis for each. And so Dan and I have just been talking about making that just clearer because, to be honest with you, the 5 cents per capita doesn't meet the TPO's financial obligation anyway. And so we just talked that through in the finance committee. We also, I'll say just for the record, Mr. Engel and Mr. Winslow and Mr. Holland agreed the relationship that we have with the Crater PDC and the Tri-Cities NPO is that we do not assess on the full Chesterfield County population. We have an adjustment and an agreement with Crater on that, but both the TPO and the commission assessments get adjusted at the same amount. So it's still 60 cents per capita for the population that we assess. And then we talked over again with Mr. Canova, but also for Chairman Davis and Ms. Abbott's benefit. Of course, we also make the adjustments to Hanover County to separate Ashland's population out. All the population figures are based on the Weldon Cooper data. We're well aware that there have been instances in the past where localities have disputed, is that the right word, Mississippi? Yeah. Disputed the Weldon Cooper population figures, and so we're certainly willing to work through that process with the jurisdictions, but we do go with the latest Weldon Cooper population estimates, and that is per our charter, and those are the July 2022 population estimates that were released in January of 2023. Sorry, I always have to think that through. And so we believe that all of those numbers have been verified by the jurisdictions and are in good form. So the action before you today is to authorize us to move forward with keeping the per capita assessment the same, recognizing that in most of your jurisdictions, your populations have actually increased. And so it does represent a whole number increase, but it does not change the rate. And that would inform our staff in how we approach the budget requests that are submitted later this month.
Thank you, ma'am. And so just for administrative purposes, and I guess legal purposes too, this wasn't brought forward with a recommendation because there wasn't a quorum. There was a consensus by the members present to bring it forward to the full commission, but no decision could be made because there wasn't a quorum. So it was brought forward on a consensus to have the full commission discuss it. So I just want to make sure that's in the record. Number 2, any questions about the Weldon Cooper? Again, done in July, came out in January. This isn't an adversarial type of situation where the PDC is debating or with the locality or have any
have any type of raucous discussions. It's just what we've used over the years, and it seems to be the best, but we're always open to hear it. I don't even want, it's not a challenge. We're always open to hear if someone has a dispute with those numbers. The PDC will always, hear that. But since members from the localities sit on the PDC, it's a homegrown concern in the localities that comes to us if there's ever a discussion. The PDC is always happy to hear that. But in any discussion around that, everybody okay? Any questions?
I'll add this, Henrico County contested it it's at least 15 years ago, and they had undercounted us. And of course, a lot of the funding is based on the actual population. So we contested it and won, but that was just one time. This is what, 28 years? One time we did, because they were way under what we thought was the correct amount, and we did show. But that was a gripe with Weldon Cooper, that was a complaint with them. It was not necessarily, wasn't with the PDC. So that would be the way to approach that, in my opinion. That would be what to do, if you have a concern.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, Ms. O'Bannon, I'll turn over item 4B3 to you, ma'am.
4B3. The membership, the increase request, I think it's been described pretty well, that I don't know, with the way things are going nowadays, I guess there has to be some sort of increase, but I do know that Ms. Schickel does try to get grants. You get a lot of grants, and you do try to cover everything when you, I guess you bid on a project. That would be,
sometimes, I guess,
you add the administrative cost to it. Any project that you're looking for or trying to fund, you look at the administrative costs, but Henrico is okay with it. I'm just gonna put it that way, but I didn't know if anybody else had any other comments. Because it is a slight increase.
And I
Any
think,
concerns? Hanover's fine with it. Mr. Winslow, yes, sir.
I was gonna say, I think it's reasonable under the circumstances, and I appreciate the work that's been done on it.
And I'm so sorry. One thing we talked about in the finance committee that I failed to mention is I think members agreed that it would be nice to have a report come to the full body about the population trends in the region. And so I will talk to our staff. I think it was last December that we had our data team, Sarah Nadakari, come to talk a little bit about demographics, and so we thought we could program that again. So Mr. Davis, I'll speak with you about when you'd like to schedule it on the agenda, and we can dive in a little bit more to how population is shifting across the region.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I apologize for not having more in-depth information. I thought Mr. Holland would be here.
Well, with that, we'll again turn over 4B3. Ms. O'Bannon, do you care to make a motion?
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2025 member dues per capita rate of 60 cents.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Winslow. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Very well. Next item on the agenda is public outreach. I see Mr. Davey is there. They have a regular scheduled meeting for November 16th to discuss new commission member orientation. I want to. This is an audible, and Ms. Schickel loves it when I do that. So we do have new member orientation. It's not indoctrination. It is orientation. We want to answer questions. We want to provide information. But for those who feel that either through their experience or when they were new members, or anything that's come up since you've been a member that you think should be added in. Years ago, somebody brought up that we should get a book for all the acronyms, and I think that would take you 4 years to learn all of those. But if you think that there is something, or you'd like to participate or have something on the agenda for new member orientation that you say, hey, this was really important. This is something I learned, 6 months in or a year in, it probably could have been incorporated. Please let us know. I think that's really important because experience is the best way to get context and understanding to move forward with future policy decisions. So happy to hear that. And you can submit that to me. You can submit it to Ms. Schickel, and then we'll get it to to folks there over at the Public Outreach and Engagement Committee. And then I've also thought about doing, an executive team type of review, maybe a lunch, and bring folks in just to talk to them about some of the past successes of the PDC, give some Mr. Bannon's talked about this before, the long history and legacy of PDCs and how they came about and the work that they do. So that's just something I wanted to toss in there. Mr. Davey.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Nothing else really to report, although I'm sure Martha might want to share things that are going on a regular basis, with public outreach on behalf of the organization. For members of the committee, I will identify, Ms. Schickel and I have both identified a bunch of conflicts on the 16th. So we're actually going to circulate some dates to go ahead and reschedule that. So we'll start working on that this afternoon. But other than that, Ms. Schickel, anything else you want to report?
I think I just want to say that we've identified that new commissioner orientation has room for improvement. And so we've decided pretty intentionally that this committee could be a really great resource in helping to structure what that could look like. And again, following this theme that one of the value adds that we hear from members of serving on the commission is the opportunity to network across the region with your colleagues. And so we want to bring that spirit to the new commissioner orientation. So we are going to be discussing at this meeting to be scheduled what that content could look like in the format. For the last several years, we've done one-on-one orientations kind of at the schedule of the new member. And they have been, in some cases, very informal and in other cases quite formal. And so we're looking to streamline that and make it be a more consistent experience for everyone. We can certainly do makeups, but I think we'll be working through what that event will look like and how to make it as beneficial as possible, particularly given the fact that we expect that we will have more new members than we're accustomed to coming on.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I think that a PowerPoint or slideshow would be a good thing to just have, and maybe we already have it, I don't know, but it's something that could be updated as things change over time, but also have a document that's consistent, that somebody can just kind of get their bearings as they're coming on board. I think that might be helpful.
I agree with you, and I think we have some ideas about that in the works. Janice has been doing some research, and we hope to launch in January, not only for the TPO, or not only for the commission, but also the TPO of a digital space that members would be able to go back. I know sometimes when you're handed a file in your email or you're handed a document, it's hard to keep track of. So we're working to create a space that members will be able to access and we can keep that content evergreen.
Yeah, and if I can just add, when I first got on this board, Doug Wilk was the chairman. He was a city councilman for the city of Richmond. He has since passed away. They named a street after him, which was nice. But he was a CPA, and he was the one that said, they called it the ABCs of the PDC and the NPO. And in it was everything, and you look at this CDTA, GRTC, RTA, DOT, FHWA, and of course there's the FHA. I mean, I could listen to a half dozen. And it was great to have a cheat sheet. We just got one sheet that had everything, explained it, but in the book, it would have a page or so of who they are and what they do and why we have to deal with them, or who, not necessarily who, but I said why. What it is that how we interact. And so it was that was a book, but yes, putting it online would be even better. As obviously more up-to-date way to handle it. But I know it's DC to DC and the number 2 RVA, CMAC. I could go on, obviously. But
that's why I like serving on the NATO board. I soft the D, so people actually think that I hold an international position with NATO. Yeah, and it hasn't helped me in the airport yet, but I'm waiting. Okay, all right. Anything else there? Thank you, Mr. Davey. Mr. Waddell did tell me that he may have a conflict on the 16th, so I trust y'all will get all of that worked out. So thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, 4D1, will be Executive Director's Report. Ms. Schickel.
Thank you. We did include the intergovernmental and environmental reviews for your reference. I do want to just, for those of you that weren't in the TPO meeting this morning, introduce our 2 new staff members, Molly Frey and Carrie Ramos. Happy to have them both on board. And I look forward to introducing more staff members to you at the December meeting. I briefed the TPO as well, but we are in the process and hope to be rounding out the end of the process for the search for the MPO administrator position by the end of the month. We've got second round of interviews scheduled mid-month and hope to head into Thanksgiving or shortly thereafter in making an offer. So, and then the last position that was approved by the board targeted to come online at the turn of the calendar year will be advertised hopefully in the next week or so. So we're on track, if not maybe a week or so behind on that. So we are excited to get back to full staff and glad for the people that have joined our team.
And you'll note that they have the EIR, the GWMA, and the EQ with the EWP, and the CERCLA, and the DERA with the EPA.
Will you be able to get that out of your head in a couple months?
Well, there's also MRAC, and I've been chairman of that for 15 years. Want to know what it is? Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Davis.
Very well. So we're obviously have a couple of important dates. I'm sure it's lost on no one in the room that we have an election coming up. And so Tuesday at 7:00 p.m., all things will shut down and the counting begins. So we will see some changes to the commission, which is always exciting, and we're excited for those folks who will win their election. We do bid a hearty farewell to those who served so honorably. I see Mr. Thornton there, Miss O'Bannon. Nothing stays the same, and change is a good thing. So we wish everyone well. We do hope that everybody can make the social, the outreach social. I like reception. Just seems like it's a little more formal, but we really hope that it's going to be personal. So that we know next Tuesday the 7th is coming, and then I'd be remiss not to mention Saturday the 11th is Veterans Day, and we want to thank all of the veterans, not only those that serve on the PDC and in our localities, but respectively in each of those localities. Ms. Schickel, there's also November 11th is also ringing a bell. Is there another event on November 11th that Saturday that you know of, ma'am?
I think it's the day that the VACO conference kicks off.
Okay, it's also Ms. Schickel's birthday. So
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I know that most people in the room are heartily excited for November 10th, which is the birthday of the finest fighting force this world's ever known, the United States Marine Corps. So I'm sure we'll all be celebrating that day heartily as well. But we have a lot of things coming up. So
Corporal O'Bannon is the first Marine,
hey, there we go.
Presley Neville O'Bannon.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yes, he had the Mameluke sword and came in Battle of Tripoli. Fine guy. So you're right. With that, keep in mind it's just a few short weeks before the 20th, and so we'd like to have as many folks there as possible. Then we know we go into Thanksgiving. And we know the localities are going to be doing their new member orientations with their board members. So if there's any input that you have, please, you can email me, you can call me, reach out to Ms. Schickel, and let us know if there's anything that you need from us. But I think right now we get this. I'm very happy to have the audit, start moving forward, and then it'll be a whirlwind. So I think there's going to be a lull for the next 3 or 4 days until Election Day, and then it'll pick back up. And then I suspect it could be a whirlwind between now and the end of the year, because obviously on midnight, January 1st, folks will be sworn in. We'll have new folks representing the region, and we're very excited for that. Anything else? Anything for the good of the order, so to speak? If not, Ms. Firestone, the time is 12:02. This meeting is adjourned.
Yay.
Schickel, I'll call you in a second. If you, could you Zoom after this, ma'am?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.